Hi, my name's Tom Lonsborough and I'm the Maschine online trainer here at Manchester MIDI School. I'm just going to talk you through the updates to both the Maschine 1.8 software and the new hardware device that accompanies that. So first up, I've loaded a project that I was actually working on in Maschine 1.7, and the first obvious change to the software and hardware, in fact, is the ability to be able to colour in sound slots, groups and also the scenes. So if I just scoot through the different groups that I've got in this project, you can see that by default, each group and sound slot is assigned a different colour, which is going to benefit both in the studio and with live performance. It just helps you to decipher what you're looking at a little bit quicker than when everything was just coloured in that amber orangey colour. So to assign either a sound slot, a group or a scene with a colour, you simply right click on it, and at the bottom of the contextual menu you'll find a colour palette from which you can assign colours. If we visit Maschine Preferences, there's an extra tab at the bottom now called Colours, and this is where we can choose a default behaviour for colouring. So under Scenes, there's a drop down menu and we can select to either pin it with a specific colour or choose Auto, which is the default option. You can see that the scenes in my project are being auto-assigned different colours. It's the same for groups and sounds. Group colour, I've got it set to automatic so that each group that gets made gets assigned a slightly different colour by default. And the sound colour, again, you can pin a specific colour, you can give it a random automatic colour, or you can tell it to follow the group colour, so that's the default option there. So I've just started something completely afresh, and I'd like to look at some of the small workflow enhancements in this latest version of Maschine. So Group A, sound slot number 1 selected, made sure button number 3, sound, is selected, hit browse, and using the 4 rotaries, just navigated to sample, drums, kick drum. So I can audition that initial kick drum using pad number 1. And I can use this brand new master encoder, rotary encoder too. Just scroll through the sounds, listening to each one as they're selected. When I find one that I like, I can actually push the encoder in and it loads that into the slot for me. So let's now record a pattern to this. So I'm going to go Shift, Record, get a bit of a count in. Just one thing to be aware of. You can't do any recording if you're still in browse mode. So you need to come out of browse mode before you can record a pattern for this. Move along to the next sound slot, hit browse. And it's still kept those same attributes on the left hand side there. On the older version Maschine, it was one of my little bugbears that occasionally it would reset all those values and we'd have to go in and find the relevant position for the drum that we were looking for again. But all I'd need to do is just maybe switch this to snare. And again, I can just use this new master encoder, or I could select a subtype if I wanted, just to. It's quite nice. Just push the button in to load it. Again, to program stuff in, you have to come out of browse mode. And so on and so forth. Whilst we're on the subject of the master encoder, if we want to affect the volume of the entire project, click volume, and now the encoder is controlling the master volume for Maschine. Click swing. Now it's affecting the global swing and tempo. So rather than having 3 dedicated rotaries, you can switch switch between the 3 different parameters that you might need to adjust. The tap volume, come out of record. Just as with the previous version of the Maschine, you hold the sound slot, the master rotary encoder will control the volume of that sound slot. If I hold Shift and press the select button, I can now select events. You can see I've selected all the snares there. If I now hold the events button, the new set of controls makes it a lot easier to edit the position, the length of each note, and the velocity. So rather than selecting single events, we now select portions of time. Over here with rotary control 1 and 2, so I'm selecting different portions of the bar. Rotary control number 4 tells me that I've selected multiple events, so what we can do is scroll through those events using that. We can affect the position with number 5. The length of the note with number 6. And if applicable, the pitch of the note, number 7, and finally the velocity, number 8. So it makes it a lot easier to go in and edit single events or selections of events using the hardware device. I always used to go in and use the mouse. It was a little bit quicker than maybe selecting events with the hardware, but now with these improvements, I might tend to stay with the hardware a little more often. There are 2 other really handy workflow improvements. The first one is the ability to be able to cut off or choke the output, the audio output of Maschine. So, for example, I've got a 1 shot there, which you can hear even if I just tap the pad once, it will play through the entirety of the sample, whereas if I hold Shift and the mute button, it will cut any audio output off temporarily. If I actually just start the arrangement playing, you can hear it's just chopping off the most recently played note, but then any subsequent notes carry on playing as they were. So like that, I'll just stop it, hit choke, shift and mute, and after I've hit stop, it'll just cut the audio output temporarily. You can actually use it as a bit of perhaps a live performance tool as well. So that's the choke function. The next one is the ability to also pin in auto write mode. So previously you had to hold auto write down, and with your other hand you would tweak your chosen parameter to record in automation. See, when you take your finger off, auto write mode is disabled, but if you hold Shift and press auto write, then that pins you in auto write mode. I'm pinned in auto write mode. And you can hear that I've just recorded in 2 lots of automation there, if you ever listen to that. Just come out of auto write mode, just restart that scene. You can see whilst I've been in auto write mode, I've actually recorded modulations for 4 different parameters there. And finally, there are a couple of new effect devices to look at. The first one of which is called Transient Master, and it enables you to shape the transient of sound by maybe making them more attacky, or maybe thickening up the back end of the sound a little bit. So let's just load this onto the drum group. We're just going to solo the kick drum. Select the second module slot for the kick drum, browse. Select effects. Click this one called Transient Master. Click load. Come out of browse mode. I'm just going to set these back to their default settings. So with the attack control, we can make the sound a bit more punchy, but put a bit more attack on the front end. Make it a bit more aggressive. Or turn it before 12 o'clock, we can soften the sound a little bit. With sustain, we can thicken up the sound by turning it round clockwise. Or make it shorter by turning it anti-clockwise. This way you've got real fine control over the length of each of your drum samples. We can boost the input gain or attenuate it. And the final control that you can see is this limiter function. If I boost the gain, you can see that the output of Maschine isn't spiking. However, if I turn the limiter off, you can see that boosting the gain will push the output of Maschine into the red. That's quite a handy little function, being able to just limit the sound. So that's the Transient Master. Just go into the next module slot, click Browse. I'm going to load the saturated device. Let's just come out of browse mode. Now we've seen this this saturated device before, but there's two new modes. There is tape and tube, and each impart slightly different colour on the sound. So if we select, for example, tape, we can attenuate the input gain, we can add warmth to the sound, and we can change the tone from bright to dull. In tube mode, again, you've got drive amount, charge. You've got this option for bass overload, which really gives you a fat bit of bottom end on the sound. And then you've got the option to EQ over here as well.